Hello friends. Today, we'll explore the chapter Indigo by Louis Fisher, which tells the story of Mahatma Gandhi's fight for justice and empowerment of the exploited indigo farmers in Champaran, Bihar. This chapter highlights the significance of effective leadership in transforming people's lives. Mahatma Gandhi's remarkable journey is a testament to the impact one leader can have on the masses. His concern for the underprivileged and his fight for their rights earned him immense love and respect. Gandhi's efforts went beyond just fighting for rights, he empowered the poor through self-reliance and upliftment. This lesson emphasizes that true leadership is not just about authority, but also about empathy and compassion. A leader who genuinely cares for the people can win their hearts and inspire positive change. The story is based on an interview between Louis Fisher and Mahatma Gandhi in 1942 at Sevagram Ashram. Fisher learned about the Indigo movement, a pivotal moment in Gandhi's struggle for the rights of sharecroppers against oppressive landlords. Through this narrative, we see Gandhi's determination and leadership in action, as he and other prominent leaders fought tirelessly for justice and equality. Key takeaways: 1. Effective leadership can bring about significant positive change in people's lives. 2. Empathy and compassion are essential qualities for a leader to connect with and inspire the masses. 3. Self-reliance and empowerment are crucial for the upliftment of marginalized communities. Mahatma Gandhi's legacy continues to inspire leaders and individuals around the world, reminding us of the transformative power of leadership, empathy, and determination.
The author recounts their first meeting with Mahatma Gandhi in 1942 at his Sevagram ashram in central India. Gandhi shared with the author the story of his struggle against British rule, tracing its beginnings back to 1917. This conversation marked the starting point for the author to understand Gandhi's experiences and motivations. The meeting at Sevagram Ashram provided a unique opportunity for the author to gain insight into Gandhi's thoughts and actions. Gandhi's willingness to share his story with the author highlights his openness and commitment to sharing his vision with others. Gandhi attended the 1916 Indian National Congress convention in Lucknow, where he met Rajkumar Shukla, a poor peasant from Champaran. There were 2,301 delegates and many visitors. Shukla requested Gandhi to visit his district, which was located in the foothills of the Himalayas near Nepal. This encounter marked the beginning of Gandhi's involvement in the Champaran struggle, a pivotal moment in India's fight for freedom and justice. Shukla's determination to bring attention to the plight of the peasants in Champaran caught Gandhi's attention, setting the stage for a significant chapter in Indian history. Rajkumar Shukla, an illiterate but determined sharecropper from Champaran, approached Gandhi at the Congress session to seek help. As a sharecropper, he cultivated land owned by others and gave a portion of his crop as rent. Shukla was fighting against the injustices of the landlord system in Bihar and had been advised to speak to Gandhi. He explained the ancient arrangement that forced many peasants in Champaran to be sharecroppers, facing hardships due to the exploitative system. Shukla's resolve to find a solution for the peasants' plight led him to Gandhi, marking the beginning of a significant movement. Gandhi initially told Shukla that he had prior commitments in Kanpur and other parts of India, but Shukla persisted, accompanying Gandhi everywhere. Even after Gandhi returned to his ashram near Ahmedabad, Shukla followed him, refusing to leave his side. For weeks, Shukla pleaded with Gandhi to fix a date to visit Champaran, determined to bring attention to the plight of the sharecroppers. Shukla's relentless pursuit eventually caught Gandhi's attention, and he began to consider Shukla's request. Gandhi, impressed by Shukla's determination, agreed to visit Champaran and told him to meet in Calcutta on a specific date. Shukla waited patiently for Gandhi's arrival and then accompanied him to Patna, Bihar. From there, they went to the house of lawyer Rajendra Prasad, who later became the President of India. Although Prasad was not at home, the servants, familiar with Shukla, allowed them to stay on the grounds. However, due to caste prejudices, they didn't permit Gandhi to draw water from the well, fearing pollution from an assumed untouchable. This incident highlights the deep-seated social inequalities prevalent at that time. Gandhi decided to visit Muzaffarpur en route to Champaran to gather more detailed information about the conditions of the sharecroppers. He sent a telegram to Professor J.B. Kriplani, whom he had met at Tagore's Shantiniketan school and who taught at the Arts College in Muzaffarpur. Upon arrival at midnight on 15 April 1917, Gandhi was greeted by Kriplani and a group of students. During his two-day stay, Gandhi resided at the home of Professor Malkani, a government school teacher. This stop allowed Gandhi to gain a deeper understanding of the issues at hand, preparing him for his subsequent visit to Champaran. Gandhi noted that it was remarkable for a government professor like Malkani to harbour him, given the fear of reprisal for supporting home rule. News of Gandhi's arrival and mission spread quickly, drawing sharecroppers from Champaran and lawyers from Muzaffarpur who briefed him on the peasants' cases and their representation in court. This marked the beginning of Gandhi's engagement with the local community and his understanding of their struggles. The lawyers' willingness to share information with Gandhi highlighted their support for the peasants' cause.
Gandhi criticized the lawyers for charging high fees from the impoverished sharecroppers, emphasizing that the courts were ineffective in providing relief to the peasants who were crushed and fear-stricken. He advocated for freeing the peasants from fear rather than relying on the courts. The root cause of the problem lay in the exploitative system where English landlords forced Indian tenants to cultivate indigo on 15% of their land and surrender the entire harvest as rent, as per long-term contracts. This system perpetuated the peasants' fear and subjugation. Gandhi's approach marked a shift towards a more grassroots and empowering solution for the peasants. The landlords, upon learning about synthetic indigo from Germany, sought to release themselves from the 15% indigo cultivation agreement by forcing sharecroppers to pay compensation. Many peasants, tired of the arrangement, willingly signed, while others resisted and hired lawyers. However, when the peasants learned about synthetic indigo, they demanded their money back, feeling cheated. The situation highlights the exploitation of the peasants by the landlords, who took advantage of their lack of knowledge and education. The peasants' demand for refunds shows their growing awareness and resistance against the unjust system. Gandhi's arrival in Champaran marked the beginning of his fact-finding mission. He first met with the Secretary of the British Landlords Association, who refused to provide information, citing Gandhi's status as an outsider. Undeterred, Gandhi then visited the British official commissioner of the Tirhut division, who responded by bullying and advising Gandhi to leave the area immediately. This encounter highlighted the resistance Gandhi faced from British officials and set the stage for his determination to support the peasants' cause. Gandhi defied the commissioner's threat and proceeded to Motihari, the capital of Champaran, accompanied by several lawyers. A large crowd welcomed him at the railway station. From his makeshift headquarters, Gandhi continued his investigation into the peasants' plight. When informed about a peasant's maltreatment in a nearby village, Gandhi decided to visit, but was intercepted by the police superintendent's messenger, who ordered him to return to town. Gandhi complied and was subsequently served an official notice to leave Champaran immediately. In a bold move, Gandhi signed the receipt and indicated his intention to disobey the order, setting the stage for a confrontation with the authorities.
Following the notice, Gandhi received a summons to appear in court the next day. He spent the night preparing, sending telegrams to Rajendra Prasad and influential friends, instructing the ashram, and reporting the situation to the viceroy. The next morning, thousands of peasants gathered around the courthouse in Motihari, unaware of Gandhi's past work but knowing he was fighting for their cause. This spontaneous demonstration marked a turning point, as the peasants began to break free from their fear of the British authorities. The crowd's presence showed their solidarity with Gandhi and their desire for change. The officials found themselves powerless without Gandhi's cooperation, and he helped them manage the crowd that had gathered outside the courthouse. Gandhi's polite and friendly demeanor gave the authorities a glimpse of the power of nonviolent resistance. The prosecutor requested a postponement of the trial, citing the need to consult with superiors. This development showed the government's uncertainty in handling the situation, as Gandhi's presence had shifted the dynamics in favor of the peasants. By standing firm and helping to regulate the crowd, Gandhi demonstrated the potential for Indians to challenge British authority. Gandhi protested the delay in the proceedings and read a statement pleading guilty, explaining that he was torn between his duty to respect lawful authority and his duty to provide humanitarian and national service to the peasants. He claimed that he disobeyed the order to leave Champaran in obedience to his conscience, rather than out of disrespect for the law. When the magistrate asked him to furnish bail for a 2-hour recess, Gandhi refused, and surprisingly, the judge released him without bail. This event showcased Gandhi's commitment to his principles and his willingness to face the consequences of his actions. When the court reconvened, the judge decided to delay the judgment and allowed Gandhi to remain free. Meanwhile, prominent lawyers from Bihar, including Rajendra Prasad, Brij Kishore Babu, and Maulana Mazharul Haq, arrived to support Gandhi. In a light-hearted exchange, Gandhi asked what they would do if he was sentenced to prison, and a senior lawyer humorously replied that they would go home, implying that without Gandhi, there would be no one to advise, and their role would be rendered pointless. This exchange highlighted the solidarity among the lawyers and their commitment to Gandhi's cause. Gandhi pressed the lawyers to consider the injustice faced by the sharecroppers, prompting them to consult among themselves. Rajendra Prasad recalled that they realized it would be shameful to abandon the peasants, especially when Gandhi, a stranger, was willing to go to prison for their cause. The lawyers decided to stand with Gandhi and offered to follow him to jail. Upon hearing their decision, Gandhi declared, "The Battle of Champaran is won." He then organized the group into pairs and outlined the order in which they would court arrest, marking a significant moment in the movement. This turning point showcased the lawyers' commitment to the peasants' cause and their willingness to take a stand alongside Gandhi. The case against Gandhi was dropped by the Lieutenant Governor, marking a historic triumph for civil disobedience in modern India. With this victory, Gandhi and the lawyers launched a comprehensive investigation into the grievances of the farmers, gathering depositions from around 10,000 peasants and collecting documentary evidence. The region was abuzz with activity as investigators worked tirelessly, while landlords vehemently protested. This inquiry aimed to expose the injustices faced by the peasants and bring about change. The success of the movement was a significant milestone, showcasing the power of nonviolent resistance and setting a precedent for future movements. Gandhi was summoned by Lieutenant Governor Sir Edward Gate in June. Before meeting him, Gandhi prepared for all possibilities, including civil disobedience, by consulting with his associates. During his 4 meetings with the Lieutenant Governor, Gandhi successfully advocated for an official commission of inquiry into the indigo sharecroppers' situation. The commission, comprising landlords, government officials, and Gandhi as the sole representative of the peasants, aimed to investigate the grievances of the sharecroppers. This development marked a significant step towards addressing the injustices faced by the peasants and provided a platform for Gandhi to voice their concerns. Gandhi spent 7 months in Champaran, followed by several shorter visits. What was initially expected to be a brief visit turned into a year-long commitment. The official inquiry gathered overwhelming evidence against the planters, leading them to agree to refund the peasants. However, they asked Gandhi to determine the amount of compensation to be paid, marking a significant shift in the planters' stance as they acknowledged their liability. This development was a major victory for the peasants and a testament to Gandhi's perseverance. The planters expected Gandhi to demand full repayment of the extorted money, but he surprisingly asked for only 50%. When the planters offered 25%, Gandhi accepted the offer, breaking the deadlock. According to Reverend J. Z. Hodge, Gandhi's acceptance was unexpected, but it marked a significant victory for the peasants. Gandhi emphasized that the amount of refund was less important than the planters' acknowledgement of their wrongdoing and their willingness to surrender part of their prestige. By accepting the 25% offer, the planters had to abide by the law, and the peasants gained courage, realizing they had rights and defenders. This outcome was a major milestone in the movement, showcasing Gandhi's strategic thinking and commitment to the peasants' cause. The outcome of the Champaran movement was vindicated as the British planters abandoned their estates, which were returned to the peasants, and indigo sharecropping disappeared. However, Gandhi's vision extended beyond economic and political solutions. He recognized the cultural and social backwardness in the Champaran villages and took immediate action. Gandhi appealed for teachers, and several volunteers, including his family members, responded. Primary schools were established in 6 villages, and Kasturbai taught the importance of personal cleanliness and community sanitation. This initiative marked the beginning of a broader effort to uplift the rural community, showcasing Gandhi's commitment to holistic development. The health conditions in Champaran were dire, prompting Gandhi to secure a doctor's volunteer services for 6 months. With limited medical supplies, castor oil, quinine, and sulfur ointment, the doctor treated patients based on their symptoms. Anybody who showed a coated tongue was given a dose of castor oil, anybody with malaria fever received quinine plus castor oil, anybody with skin eruptions received ointment plus castor oil. The women of the area used to wear dirty clothes. When Gandhiji tried to know the reason through his wife, he was told that those were the only saris each of the women had. Gandhi also noticed the poor state of women's clothing and asked Kasturbai to address the issue. However, the women explained that they lacked storage for clothes and often had only one sari to wear, highlighting the deep-seated poverty and lack of resources in the community. This revelation underscored the need for comprehensive development initiatives, going beyond just political or economic solutions. During his stay in Champaran, Gandhi maintained close oversight of the ashram through regular mail instructions, including directives on financial accounts and even latrine maintenance. Notably, he reminded residents to dig new latrines to replace the old ones to prevent foul odors. The Champaran episode marked a significant turning point in Gandhi's life, as he asserted his defiance against British authority in his own country. Gandhi described his actions as ordinary, emphasizing that he simply stood up against unjust orders, declaring that the British couldn't dictate to him in his own land. This experience shaped Gandhi's approach to resistance and empowerment. The Champaran movement began as a humanitarian effort to alleviate the suffering of poor peasants, rather than an act of defiance. This approach was characteristic of Gandhi's method, where politics and daily life problems of the masses were deeply intertwined. Gandhi's loyalty was to living, human beings, rather than abstract ideas. Through his work, he aimed to empower Indians to stand on their own feet, ultimately making India free. By serving humanity and promoting self-reliance, Gandhi sought to create a new, free Indian who could assert their rights and dignity. This approach underscored his commitment to grassroots, people-centric activism. When Charles Freer Andrews, an English pacifist and Gandhi's follower, offered to stay and help in Champaran, Gandhi refused. He believed that relying on Andrews' presence because he was an Englishman would show a lack of self-reliance among the Indian lawyers and peasants. Gandhi wanted them to trust in their own abilities and the justness of their cause, rather than seeking external support. This stance taught his lawyer friends, including Rajendra Prasad, a valuable lesson in self-reliance, emphasizing that true strength came from within. By doing so, Gandhi reinforced the importance of Indian independence and self-sufficiency, highlighting the interconnectedness of these values with their efforts to help the sharecroppers. Sir Charles Freer Andrews was said to be an Englishman who was more Indian than Indians. He was known as Deen Bandhu, friend of the poor, for his work in India. Thank you.